Perfect.
Supreme Leader Scope will not.
Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and in today's video I am going to be giving you guys 11 tips to instantly improve your lightsaber dueling skills. Now these tips are great for heroes versus villains, hero showdown, and even if you come up against another hero in Galactic Assault, some of these points in this video may just save your life. Anyways, before I start, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who tuned into the charity stream for the Australian bushfire relief, and an even bigger shout out to everyone who donated. You guys are all absolutely incredible, and once the donations clear, I will be putting the money towards the 2 charities that I mentioned in my community post. But I just wanted to say a massive thank you before I started this video. You guys are all legends. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, let's get into the tips. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and also turn on all notifications for future videos by pressing the bell icon. Now, in case you guys didn't know, you can actually get into Hero Showdown and get 1v1 lightsaber duels with another enemy if you are the only 2 in the game. Not only on top of this is you can kind of tee it up, whereas you spam the block button or you jump up and down on the spot. Usually that's an indicator that you want to do 1v1s in Hero Showdown, and most people are usually up for it. Occasionally you'll get a team that isn't, but if you want to try some 1v1s, this is the way to do it. So when you're 1v1 lightsaber dueling someone, there are a lot of things to take into consideration. The first thing you want to think about is your stamina management, and this pretty much comes down to don't be a swing spammer. There are a lot of new players in the game right now, and you guys are swing spamming your heads off. This is not the most effective way to win 1v1 against someone. If you do this and you're up against an experienced player, they're going to dismantle you, and I can show you some footage if you want to see what that looks like, but you probably don't want to. Anyways, the way I like to approach it is 2 to 3 swings max, then reposition and then go in for another attack. If you know your enemy is on the ropes, you may be able to get away with more than 2 to 3 attacks, but when you're starting out a lightsaber duel, the last thing you want to be doing is swing spamming that right trigger or your attack button, whichever one you're playing on console or on PC. You don't want to be spamming this because the enemy's just going to block it, you're going to lose all your stamina, and then they've got free reign at your health bar. So tip number 1, stamina management. Tip number 2 is the perfect parry. Now, if you guys don't know what a perfect parry is, it's basically when you're holding your block down and your enemy is attacking you, if you time it right, you can swing back, damage your opponent, and not take any damage yourself. So the way this works, and a lot of players won't tell you this because they don't want you to know this, is that if you're holding down your block, continue to hold your block while your opponent attacks you, and then right as your lightsabers clash, you want to hit your attack button, which will then do like a little counter swing, and you'll still have your block ready. So it's almost like you're just blocking their attack and you're getting a sneaky counter strike in while you're there. You won't take any damage, but your opponent will take damage. And I'll show you examples of this in the background. If you guys watch closely, you'll see that my health bar doesn't move. This can make all the difference if you and your enemy are both on low health and you've got a swing spammer up against you. Now, this does take a lot of practice, but if you can master it, it can be really effective, and it's going to save you in a lot of different situations. Moving on from this is number 3, and this is another thing that a lot of players don't know or won't tell you. It's that you can parry and counter certain abilities. Things like Darth Maul's spin attack, Rey's dash strike, Kylo Ren's frenzy, and even Count Dooku's duelist swings can be countered with a perfect parry, and you can strike them back. And I'm going to show you some clips here. There's ones on Darth Maul's spin where I do counter it and actually get a hit while he's spinning past me, but don't take any damage myself. There's ones on Rey using her dash. There's ones where Dooku is attacking me all out with his duelist ability, and you guys know how fast that lightsaber swings when he's got it activated. And also when Kylo's frenzy ability is activated, you can parry and counter every single one of Kylo's frenzy swings. So most people won't tell you this, but again, it comes down to practicing that parry and knowing when to time your swings. Those 2 tips in themselves are going to drastically improve your lightsaber combat, so make sure you get into the hero modes and practice that as much as possible. Tip number 4 is knowing your hero. Each hero that wields a lightsaber has different stats when it comes to blocking and attacking stamina, how many times they can swing before they're out of stamina, and their ability timing, their ability recharge rate, and also their saber strike types and how quickly they swing. So each hero is dependent. If you guys are just starting out or you're new to the game, I recommend using probably Luke or Count Dooku if you're on the dark side. These 2 are probably the easiest to get used to dueling with, as they're both very standard. They've got good recharge in terms terms of stamina. They have high stamina pools as well, and they do a decent amount of damage. So those are probably the two heroes you're going to want to get to know first, and they're going to be the main ones that you'll be using to start off. But every hero is different, and with parrying as well, these two heroes are probably the easiest to do it with. So Rey, Yoda, Darth Vader, the Grievous, they're a little bit harder to parry with and get those counter strikes in. So I'd start off with Luke and Dooku and then work your way up to some of the harder heroes. Tip number 5 is going to be ability combinations. Now people may know some of the ability combinations, you know, Luke's rush attack to his repulse or a force push into a rush, but there are things like Darth Vader's choke into a jumping swing, turn around and then throw the lightsaber at them that can do an absolute ton of damage. Shout out to Star Bazaar for being like the first one to discover this combination. Ever since I started using it, it is absolutely killer. If you guys haven't seen it, I will try and insert a clip here of it being done. It just melts through heroes, and if you can pull it off, it's really effective. But knowing the ability combos that are great with your hero is probably what you're going to want to be doing and getting used to. One example for me is with General Grievous. I like to use Thrust Surge into Claw Rush and then finish it off when you stand up from Claw Rush if you're near your opponent, then going into Unrelenting Advance. It uses all three of his abilities in combination, which some people may not think is a good idea, but if you land all three, you're pretty much going to immediately wipe out your enemy. So ability combinations and using those abilities with certain lightsaber attacks or dodges and dashes, these are all things you want to practice as well. Tip number 6 is going to be the double dash. And what I mean by the double dash is a simple forwards and backwards dash. This can be done when you're lightsaber dueling 1v1 against someone and you are at very close quarters. So sometimes when you're lightsaber dueling against someone, you guys are pretty much face to face. You're within a meter of each other. And I've found if you dash forward through your opponent and then backwards behind your opponent, as you dash backwards, they've turned around to see where you went. And when they turn around, you've already dashed behind them and you can get a couple of cheeky lightsaber swings on their back and deal some damage. Like I said, I'll try and get examples of this happening in the background as well, so you guys can see what I mean. Tip number 7 is probably an obvious one, but it is to be unpredictable. There's nothing worse than being the most readable player on the game. If an enemy knows what you're doing, they're going to know exactly how to counter it. And if you keep doing the same thing through every single round, they're just going to dominate you. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to do anything. You want to be as unpredictable as possible. Now moving into number 8, it's actually the opposite of what I just said, but it's when you're actually trying to read someone. You want to read your opponent's moves based on what they're doing early on in the duel. Sometimes if you have like an admirable opponent who does want to do a one-on-one, these can last 3, 4, 5 minutes sometimes. So if you guys want to do this and try and get 1v1 lightsaber duels, read what your opponent's doing. Know when they're going to use certain abilities, or think about, you know, what they just used in combination together, and try to read that so you can counter it. Tip number 9 is to swing when your enemy goes for an ability use. Now this may seem silly, but if you time it right, you can actually damage your opponent while they're going for an ability. Again, sometimes this can be really risky, like Kylo Ren's freeze. If you try and swing and you get caught in the freeze, sometimes you'll hit him and do damage, but sometimes you won't. I really only recommend trying to do this when the enemy is low on health and you think you've got one more swing left to kill them. If they go for a pull or a freeze or whatever force ability it may be and they're in an animation, sometimes you can get off a sneaky swing and cause that final strike. So if they're low on health, try this. If they're not, probably just stick to what you've been doing and try to get them down a little bit further. Next up is tip number 10, and this is to keep in mind the cooldown times for your opponent's abilities, not just your own. Obviously you've got an indicator down in the bottom right corner of when your abilities are good to go again, but you don't know when your opponents are. When your opponents are using their abilities, keep in mind how long it's been since the last time they used it, so you know when they've got it ready again. For me, if I'm playing as Luke and I'm going up against Darth Maul and he's just thrown me away, this is an easy way to know that I've got a solid 10 seconds or so before his throw is going to come back again, so that I can push in close and not worry about getting force choked. Another thing to stack on top of this is, like, if you're playing Obi-Wan, using his mind trick ability, now that it doesn't take away the dashes of your enemy, is pretty much useless if the enemy has already used their abilities. So for example, if a Grievous has just used all 3 of his abilities trying the combo that I mentioned earlier, and you're playing as Obi-Wan, you manage to dodge them all, and then you use mind trick on him, well, it's pretty much pointless at that time because there's no abilities to actually cut out with the mind trick. So you may as well wait for them to actually have their abilities available to use this ability with Obi-Wan. Now, the final tip I am going to give you guys is to use abilities to recharge your stamina. Now, there are 2 parts to this one. Keep an eye on your enemy stamina, which is just underneath their health bar above their head, and using your own abilities to recharge your stamina. Using the parry parry and counter strike system, this can be very effective ways of getting your health down on your opponent, but it's also a very quick way to drain your own stamina. So the main thing you want to think about with this is keeping an eye on your own stamina bar, and when it starts to get low, use your abilities to recharge your own stamina. Stamina recharges when you're not swinging or blocking, so if you want to do this, for example, if I'm playing Obi-Wan, I will try and use a force push on an enemy or use his defensive rush on an enemy to try and close that time so that my stamina can recharge. These abilities don't necessarily have to hit your enemy, they may be able to block them, but it stops them from pushing you and getting in close to lightsaber swing at you when you have no stamina left. So make sure you're managing it well, and if you need to recharge it, definitely use one of those abilities to get your stamina back. So guys, that is 11 tips that are going to improve your lightsaber dueling instantly. I really hope this video helped you guys. I apologize if there was any background noise that you guys could hear, but in saying that, leave a big thumbs up if it did help, and drop a comment down below what the next video you guys want to see is going to be. I will have a pinned comment down there with a link to some Heroes vs Villains star card options if you guys want to watch that as well, but remember to let me know which video you want to see next. I am going to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much for all the support lately. I will see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you always.
The Sith